Hey everyone, welcome to another hot take. I'm Tony D. A lot of the screenwriting bros out there have asked me, what's it like to be in Los Angeles? Did you go to Los Angeles? Yes, I actually lived in Los Angeles for a very short time. I hated it. And here are 5 reasons why I just hated Los Angeles. Okay? Reason number 1, it's too expensive. It's just incredibly expensive. Everything costs too much money. The rent, the food, the going out anywhere, everything's just expensive, just like in any major city. But in Los Angeles, it feels like it's going to be cheap. That's the weird thing about it. Things feel like they're going to be cheap or normal priced, but they're not. They're just insanely high. I think it's because it's so sunny out there. You feel like you're on vacation all the time. And that brings me to number 2. The weather. The weather's so gorgeous, it actually kind of hurts you. Yeah. It's weird if you're from an area of the country like I am in New Jersey, where you have seasons. You have no seasons really in LA. It just sucks. And so like Christmas rolls around and it's 72 degrees. It sucks. The only seasons, as Johnny Carson would say, would be like earthquake, fire, and so on. So the weather messes with you in that way. Say hi, Joan. Poor little Joan never went to LA. She's probably better for it. Anyhow, the weather. The weather's just terrible. Number 3, and I hate to say this, but it's the people. And I mean the natives, right? See, if you're not from the area, not from LA or California, and a lot of people in Hollywood aren't, they're transplants who come in because they want to work in the movie industry, they're more normal. But the problem with LA is the natives are so warped by the business, so warped by the constant desperation that it's normal to them. Let me tell you stuff that's normal to them. It's normal to them to agree to meet you somewhere and then they just don't show up. It's normal for them to invite you somewhere and then be surprised if you show up. It's normal for them to offer you a beverage when you arrive at their home and then suddenly discover that they have no beverages to actually give you because they didn't expect you to actually take the offer. It's this weird phoniness of constant politeness that they don't mean. See, that's the thing. I do, for those of you who don't know, on the Webcomic Factory, I do a comic called East Coast and West Coast, and that's one of the things we explored, the different cultures of East Coast and West Coast. See, in the West Coast, everybody's polite, but nobody seems to mean it, whereas on the East Coast, nobody's that polite, but you can be guaranteed that what they say is probably true. Which brings me to the next thing is there's kind of nothing to do in LA. Like, there's always cool stuff to do in New York. There's always cool stuff to do in just about anywhere. In LA, since everything's entertainment, I think, and it's kind of like when you work in entertainment, like when you work in comics. When you work in comic books, you stop reading comic books. So I think everybody out there works in entertainment so much, they don't go to entertaining things. Like going to a comedy club isn't fun for them. That's work. Going to a play isn't fun for them. That's work. Everything that's supposed to be entertaining becomes work out there, or a chance to network so you could get work. And this brings me to the 5th and final reason, which is the biggest reasons by far. LA sucks because the show business has consumed the city. Everybody there, and if you go, you will discover this. I was told this, and I didn't really believe it, but everybody there wants to be in show business. And when you hear that statement, you go, well, not everybody. Yes, everybody. If you go into the smallest plaza there in a place that sells tacos, and somebody hands you a menu, that person is an actor or a screenwriter or a wannabe director. They're all in on it. I got accosted by a homeless guy who was carrying a briefcase, and I'm convinced to this day it was full of screenplays. Everybody there, everybody wants to be in the business. Now, there are a handful that were either born into it or they were in it for a while and leave, and then they kind of stay and do some ancillary thing. But even that ancillary thing is around the business. It's just amazing how Hollywood consumes everything out there. And the desperation it puts on people is palpable. So like one time when I was living there, I was with some friends and we went into a bar, and Steve Buscemi was there. Now this is pre-Fargo Steve Buscemi. He's pretty famous. He's famous in the indie circuit, but he's not like giant famous Steve Buscemi yet. And clearly he just was there having a good time with his friends, and I certainly wanted to meet him. But you could not imagine the fawning and the desperation of as the bar just got sucked right up to Buscemi, and he was just bombarded by people. It's like he became the only pretty girl at a party attended by horny guys. It was just everybody was fighting for a spot in front of him, to be in the conversation, to laugh at his jokes, to tell him how great he was. And I just felt so bad for him. And at that point, seeing all that, I didn't want to bother him at that point. I didn't want to meet him. I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to somehow get credit for not meeting Steve Buscemi. So I wanted to somehow later call Buscemi up and say, hey, I'm one of the people who didn't bother you. So he could go, oh, thanks, I appreciate it. I mean, it was that bad. And so I can only imagine, he can't even go in a public place in LA, I think, because it would just be ridiculous. And it's that sickening desperation. It just warps people. And so I'm really glad I don't live there anymore. I didn't last long. It was just too expensive. And I eventually came back for a bunch of reasons, which maybe I'll get into in another video. So that's my hot take on LA. Screw LA.